The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
What's on the menu for today?
Well, Your Majesty, the food, we have about 300 baskets of fine flour to make some of the finest bread that you have ever seen. We have 10 of the fattened oxen from the field, not to mention 20 of the oxen from the pastures, on top of 100 sheep. And let's not forget about the deer, the gazelle, the roebucks, and Your Majesty, to top it all off, we have a fine assortment of the most brilliant fatted fowl from all over the land.
Sounds delicious. Remind me, out of all of the 12 governors, who's responsible for providing the food this month?
Let me see. It's Ben-Hur, the House of Ben-Hur. So they are responsible for the fine feast we are receiving today.
Yes. It's always a pleasure to experience food from the mountains of Ephraim. Make sure I'll make a extra plate of Robux for me today. Thank you.
Solomon reigned during a peaceful time in Israel's history and enjoyed the abundance of the land. This week we are exploring 1 Kings chapter 4. As always, be blessed and enjoy.
All right, we are rolling.
All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast.
My name is Nakhaz Gay.
I'm Earl Roberts and we're your hosts.
Yep.
So definitely appreciate everyone for tuning in again with us this week. Hopefully everyone had a great week out there. I mean, I know my week was a bit stressful, it was a bit crazy, and I think you indicated your week was kind of the same. But I mean, through it all, God is good.
Amen.
God is definitely good. So, how you been?
I've been all right, man. I just feel like, things just been heavy on my mind for the past couple of years. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I was 25, just like 4 years ago, like times were simpler. We used to say that, right? Like it was a simpler time.
It was a simpler time when
But
I didn't have to pay bills.
Right. But even apart from the responsibilities, I do feel like I had to deal with less problems and less issues and less like stuff that can make me sad or kind of stress me out, back then. And I feel like when the pandemic rolled in, it was just a high stress time. And since then, it went down a notch, but it didn't go all the way back down to how things was pre-pandemic for me. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, like sometimes you hear bad news from back home, I just feel like these things happen more frequently and it can really affect my mood at times. Mm-hmm. But by the grace of God, I am thankful. And throughout any hardship that I'm going through or anything that's kind of like really kind of ruining my mood, it just makes me feel like I'm ready for God to return, It's not that I'm ready to not live or anything like that, but I'm like, I can't wait till we live in a perfect world where, there's no pain and no sorrow, no suffering and no bad news for us.
That's so interesting too, man, because it's almost unfathomable to think about, right? Mm. Because we're so used in our human existence to experience hurt, to experience pain. And you get to a point in your life where you almost get numb to it to a sense. But when you read the Bible, you know that there's actually better coming, and it's sometimes it's almost hard to even like conceptualize what that is. Because I don't know what it is to like never again have to feel hurt and pain.
Like even saying the phrase "in a perfect world" sounds kind of like wishful thinking.
Yeah, so that's really how it sounds.
Like what type of world you live in? Like, you know, like you expect to live in a perfect world one day.
Like we all know this world ain't perfect.
Right, but actually, yes, I do expect to live in a perfect world one day. You know, I can't wait, actually. And
Your perfect world round or flat?
My perfect world of ever God created. I already know what side you picking in this model.
I believe this is what God created, so you know. Oh my, but that's good though. I mean, like it gives us hope. I know in church we have this song called "We Have This Hope." You know what I'm saying? And it's really a powerful song when you think about it, and it really shows how we should be as Christians. We know that there's a better out there, well, I should say out there first, but there's a better life ahead of us. You know, once we walk in His ways, keep His commandments, similar to what He told Solomon last episode. Like, we have this hope that burns within our hearts, hope of the coming of the Lord. So if we believe the time is now, then all those, well, I forget the rest of the song though. But either way, anyway, like, man, we should just have that hope that Christ is coming and like aspire to be in heaven. Like it's gonna be amazing. Before we even get into the episode though, like couple episodes ago, I think about 2 episodes ago, right? We put the twig symbol in the sky, and Twigman did respond. And for those of you guys who were like who may or may not remember, it was referring to Jerusalem being the city of David, right? I'm gonna just say his response on that, since he actually typed a lengthy response and he went through the trouble of actually, you know, like providing us some knowledge, even though it was still an open-ended question at the end. Yeah. But just some history, right? So he went back and said, okay, in Joshua 15, verse 63, but the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the people of Judah, could not drive out the Jebusites. So the Jebusites dwelled with the people of Judah at Jerusalem to this day. In Judges again, and then in Judges 121, the people of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. So the Jebusites had lived with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. So now on to David in 2 Samuel 5 verse 6. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, who said to David, you will not come in here, but the blind and the lame will ward you off, thinking David cannot come in there. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. There is the name. So his interpretation is that David is known for capturing Jerusalem and building it into his capital, but he was born in Bethlehem. And he says, now for the bonus. In Judges, and the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it and struck it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. So, and again in Judges 121, but the people of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. So the Jebusites are lived with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. So he is wondering, did the men of Judah burn Jerusalem and the Jebusites just inhabited after they burned it? Granted, we ain't prepared for this, and Kazi didn't know I was reading this. So this again, for our first 2 times, like actually digesting this live on pod.
Because the terminology to this day, right? To me, it implies that this is written after the occurrence happened, right? And so the person who's the author is saying that at some point in time, the Jebusites, the Benjamites burned down the city, but then they also say the Jebusites live there to this day, which means that even after the city was burned down, the Jebusites either continued to live there or moved back there. What we do know is that they were there after the burning, you know, but it did say that the tribes could not run the Jebusites away. So my thing is, you could burn down our city, but that don't mean you got rid of us.
You kill us.
That don't mean you exterminate us or anything like that. So yeah, I think they had valiant efforts, but it wasn't good enough until David came around.
And that's how Jerusalem kind of got the name, the city of David, because he kind of captured it from the hands of the Jebusites. So that's interesting, a little tidbit there. Hopefully, you know, again, that's what we like though. Like, you know, someone listen to the podcast, goes on their own journey. You know, the views of a breath of fresh air reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you to use it as a conversational tool to further studies of your own.
Amen.
And it's kind of what Twigman did. He went through the Bible, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and dug deeper to kind of get an understanding of, you know, where's the background behind David being Jerusalem being known as the city of David. So
yeah, and so the only thing that kind of
it's all good.
the only thing that kind of
okay, gotta cut that out.
yeah, all right. So the only thing that kind of makes it confusing about the city of David is that the first time I heard the term city of David was during a Bible cartoon where Mary and Joseph was like. Mary was like, yo, I'm pregnant. Joseph was like, yo, but we have to go to Bethlehem, the city of David, because, you know, that's my ancestors, right? And so the whole time I thought Bethlehem equals city of David. And Luke describes Bethlehem as the city of David. However, that's after multiple references of Jerusalem being the city of David. And so that's why I do think it's conflicting. And, you know, the two things can be true. This one can be the city of David as a title because of all of the great things David has done. Another one can be the city of David because this is literally the city where David is from.
Facts.
You know?
Facts. I mean, like, if someone comes to Orlando, they'll call it your city.
Right.
But you go home and say, that's my city too.
Right.
So
that is true.
Kind of probably how it was played out in ancient times, I guess. It's crazy to think how long ago these stories happened. So this week we are continuing the story of the wisest king that ever lived, good old King Solomon, from 1 Kings chapter 4. So yeah, let's get it. So reading from the New King James Version. So King Solomon was king over Israel, and these were his officials: Azariah, the son of Zadok, the priest. Woo!
And that's how it is all through Kings and Chronicles.
I know, man. Elohorith and Ahijah, the sons of Sisha, scribes. Jehoshaphat, the son of Eliahud, the recorder. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, over the armies. Zadok and Abiathar, the priests. Azariah, the son of Nathan, not to be confused with Azariah, the son of Zadok, over the officers. Zabud, the son of Nathan, a priest and the king's friend. Ahishar, over the household. Adoram, the son of Abda, over the labor force. And Solomon had 12 governors over Israel who provided food for the king and his household. Each one made provision for 1 month of the year. These are their names: Ben-Hor in the mountains of Ephraim, Ben-Deker in Nakhaz, Salbim, Beth Shemesh, and Elon Bath-Hanan, Ben-Hesed in Araboth. To him belong Succoth and all the land of the heifer. Ben-Abinadab in all the regions of Dors. He and Tiphath, the daughter of Solomon. He had Tiphath, the daughter of Solomon, as a wife. Baana, the son of Eliud, in Tanakh, Megiddo, and Beth Shean, which is beside Zetariam below Jezreel, and Beth Shean, and Abel Meholah, as far as the other side of Jekneam. Sorry if I'm butchering these names, by the way, because I'm pretty sure I'm butchering them. And you would think I didn't listen to the pronunciations earlier today. All right, Ben Gerber in Ramoth Gilead. To him belong the towns of Jehar, the son of Manasseh, in Gilead. To him also belong the region of Argob in Bashan, 60 large cities with walls and bronze gate and bars. Abinadab, the son of Iddo, in Mahanaim, Ahimaz in Naphtali. He also took Basemath, the daughter of Solomon, as a wife. Solomon apparently had a lot of daughters, which would make sense.
Yeah, it would really make sense.
It would make sense
from a probabilities perspective.
Benah, the son of Hushai, in Asher and Aloth. Jehoshaphat, the son of Paruah in Issachar, Shimei, the son of Eli in Benjamin. It's interesting too, because like, some of these other tribes, like, when was the last time you heard about Issachar?
For real.
I don't really hear about them like that though.
Boy, but after Kings, bro, it's slim. You might never hear about them again but maybe after for a second Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shimei, the son of Eli and Benjamin, Gerber, the son of Uri in the land of Gilead, and in the country of Shishon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. He was the only governor who was in the land. Okay. And just in case you got lost in the sauce, that was Solomon's 12 governors. And I felt like I said way more than 12 names. In verse 20, Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and rejoicing. So Solomon reigned over all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines. As far as the border of Egypt, they brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. And it was so interesting too, man, like just remembering when Israel was literally only 12 sons.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I don't know. I don't get into that deep conversation. Would led me to think about that, but Joseph. All right, no, I can get into it. When Joseph's brothers came to visit him in Egypt, obviously he spoke a different language, and they didn't know he was Joseph. Some would even say they didn't know that he was an Israelite, which would imply that he looked like an Egyptian. Which would imply that Israelites and Egyptians look alike or looked alike during that time, And so I was just thinking about that, and I'm just like, you know what? All of these all of the brothers, they lived in Egypt. They don't even know what they don't even know what happened after Egypt. Like it's a long journey. They have a whole tribe of people that lived after them that has their own individual cultures, and they will not know about that until heaven. It's so funny because you might say the tribe of Benjamin are left-handed people, but Benjamin himself might have been a right-handed. You know what I mean? Like the culture could have developed the tribes could have developed their own culture.
That'd be sick, man.
That'd be crazy, bro. That would be so crazy.
Wow. Okay. That's a fact though. Like, they literally turned it into like their own individual nations.
That's the type of line of thinking that I went through this week. I'm like, man, these nations, and then because I was thinking about the word Jew, right? Obviously, it's a really tense time right now. It's a really tense time. So I wanted to know by definition, how did we come about this name? Because
I almost did the whole podcast cancel.
Definitely stay away from that conversation. But I was thinking about how the name came up, right? And I'm like, because they don't say it in the Old Testament. I don't think they say Hebrew, they say Israelite. But where did Jew come from? And based on Google search, Google, they have like the phonetic definition of like how it's whatever, and it is kind of meant of Judah, which would make sense because when the kingdoms split, the people who occupied the southern kingdom, which is Jerusalem and stuff, were people of the line of Judah. You understand what I'm saying?
And
Jews,
and they just nickname them
Jew, right? Like they cut off the duh and they just say Jew, And I was man. That's all I
call the other ones Samaritans.
My mind just go all over the place though.
I know. I'd be like that too. But like, what I was thinking about too is like, just imagine like Abraham, who got the promise that I will make your children like your descendants will be like the sands of the seashore. Who never really got to see that promise. I mean, we know Abram in the end had about 12 sons too, right? But at the same time, you could count them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could go to the beach and there's so much sand on the beach. You leave the beach and you feel like you put all the sand on the beach in your car. But that's just how numerous the sand of the seashore actually is. And it's just interesting, like, because, I mean, one, it shows that God always keeps his promises.
Yep.
Even when you're not alive to see the promise fulfilled. And I know Hebrews talks about this. I think it's Hebrews 11 when it goes on about faith. But just the whole concept of like having faith and trusting God and knowing that God is going to keep his promise, but also showing like how some of the fathers of faith were not even alive to see some of the promises fulfilled. Like, I mean, Moses died before like the children of Israel actually entered into the promised land, but he had faith that they were going to get in. Abraham, like we mentioned, man, you see now like the Bible is showing like, the children of Israel were like the sand of the seashore. This is like almost like a direct call back to the promise that God made to Abraham way back in Genesis. And we just was talking before, Paul, like how much Bible persons we already covered, and we're only in Kings. But think about how long ago Genesis and Abraham was. Like Abraham was our first like mini series where we just like on one character for a while, and that felt like literally like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Now for us to do that, we have to kind of follow the book that follows your life. You know, like so like First and Second Samuel, well, mainly mid First Samuel, most of Second Samuel, those books dedicated to David's reign. You know, and when we get to Kings, we don't have a lot of that. Like you might have like Solomon might be the last not really with last person that we're gonna be on for multiple episodes that doesn't have their own book, basically. Well, maybe not, because you know some of the prophets in it get like that, but we don't have another like David and Joseph and you know Abraham, not like that.
So we were reading in verse 22. Yeah, because remember we were talking about like that's what we got on this tangent, talking about how blessed Israel was, and also goes to show too like what were these people doing now? They were eating, drinking, rejoicing, and it like what people gotta realize like we had Saul who was a warrior king for what it's worth. We had David who was definitely a warrior king. But during David's reign, if you remember, David like advanced Israel to like one of the biggest that it ever going to be. And then he also like, you know, kind of subdued all their enemies. So when Solomon rolled around, we had a terminology sometimes for peacetime and wartime. Solomon was a peacetime king. He didn't really have to go to war per se. He was more so enjoying all the work David did. Now I don't want to make it sound like he was lazy, because you have to run and sustain. That was Solomon's job, but Solomon didn't really have to conquer. And you could see the people's lives were good. They didn't have no care in the world. They eating, drinking, rejoicing. They having the time of their lives. And Solomon reigned over all the kingdoms as far from the river to the land of the Philistines, as far as the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. So we see again, Solomon's kingdom was vast. He had a decent reign, and he didn't really have to worry too much about his enemies, as in David.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that you know, even God kind of commend him on, because he wasn't worrying about his enemies to begin with. When he had the opportunity to ask for anything, he didn't say, "Hey, God, conquer my enemies, make me vast, make me strong." He was saying, "God, help me to be wise enough in order to rule your people and lead and be a good leader." And by the grace of God, you know, God bless him with that. You know, God bless him with the opportunity to be a good leader and the resources, you know, and the wisdom to be that leader. I was laughing too though, because like he had 12 governors, and each month they had to provide a meal for the king's house. You know, like this young one. Like, that's
actually interesting, yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I'm like, okay, that's a little interesting thing that y'all do. Potluck. I know how to call it.
Going back to the choice though, right? Like, it kind of makes sense, like how you brought it up, man. I just was thinking about it, because if your father already did all your work and your enemies ain't even that strong anymore, you don't even have to worry about like. So Solomon really and truly asked for the thing he needed the most at that point. Like, I need to know how to run these people. I need some wisdom to actually like, you know, govern these people, because enemies ain't a problem. Like, who I actually killed? They weak,
right? And you know, I thought about that last episode too, because I'm like, you know, we commend, and I try not to hate on like some people or minimize what they do, but you know, people spoke highly of Solomon for his request, like it. And but when I was reading it, I'm like, you know, I mean, this wasn't like a, you know, I was starting to think, man, this might not be as noble as we think his request was. This might have just been his biggest area where he didn't want to get embarrassed. Like, I don't want to fail. My dad leave big shoes, you know. He might have wanted all of the glitz and the glamour, but he had to choose which one he wanted the most. That's what I was thinking. But in like kind of thinking about it a little deeper, his request was actually a selfless thing. You know?
Yeah.
It wasn't about, obviously I want to be good and manage my people, but I want my people to get the best out of my kingship. You know, I want my people to thrive more than anyone else, or not even more than anyone else, but I want them to thrive tremendously. And that's why he said, God, give me wisdom.
Yeah, he wants people to prosper. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, nothing wrong with that at all. It's not in verse 22. Now Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cors of fine flour, 60 cors of meal, 10 fatted oxen,
Bro.
20 oxen from the pastures, and 100 sheep, besides the deer, gazelle, roebucks, and fatted fowl.
Chicken, turkey.
You realize ain't no lentil soup.
Oh yeah, but she's eating like a king. You know, I have a running joke with my wife. Like we'd go to like the Indian restaurant, the Thai restaurant, and they don't play. The food is so amazing. I lean back to her and say, "Baby, you telling me King Solomon was eating this good?" I can't fathom that, bro. Like, because like obviously the advancement in technology and stuff like that, right? But I want to believe that. That's why I call like India and Thailand like places with have rich histories, like especially India, and that's closer to like the eastern region or whatever. So I feel like more than likely the dishes that we eat today have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So it's probably quite possible that Solomon was eating curry. But I'm just like, yo, how good was the king's eating? Because when we look at on TV, they always have this big smorgasbord of fruits.
But you realize it's like 30 cows, bro.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm talking about the optics of whenever they try to show a feast online, they might have one like turkey thigh or something, right? But it's a bunch of fruit. And I'm like, bro, that pales in comparison to this fettuccine alfredo that I just had, bro. Like,
but now you see what Solomon got.
Yeah. Solomon wasn't playing because Solomon's saying, bro, I want all of the finest meat.
Bro, every day.
Every day.
I was thinking about the sheer mathematics of, bro, how much cows is this per day, bro?
Yeah, true. Because I was thinking, bro, like you do 10 fattened oxen daily. It's not that 10 oxen, just the fat ones, the ones that ready to eat. You know what I mean?
See, like, so see, in our days, right? Like today, you wouldn't think of like the fatted oxen in the Bible when they said that's like the ones they like
prep to eat.
Yeah, like they feed them, and that's why they make the distinction between the ones that were just out grazing. Because now they killing like all them, they all ready to eat now. Right. But it's like the difference between like eating Wagyu beef and just eating choice meat.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
He got 10 Wagyu cows.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And he get 10 great choice grade cows.
Because in my mind, it's more likely that you would have a grazed cow than a fattened cow. Like I feel like the grazed cow outnumber the fattened cows, and he had 10 of them per day.
Per day, and that's what freaking him.
Per diem.
You should run out.
This was his per diem, bro. Like, he wanted gazelles, which I did not even realize was kosher until just now, bro.
I tell you this before.
You tell me one thing. You probably told me this, but the one that stick the most was the giraffe. It's the giraffe. That one stick, bro. I'm taking that one to my grave.
You got me sound like a maniacal fiend.
How? If God give us the okay.
But yeah, bro, like the day up, bro, like this man was eating, bro. You know what it is? You literally have about like 5 different meats.
You have different types of game, bro. You have roebucks, you have gazelle, you have deer, bro.
I want some venison today.
Yeah.
Oh, I want the gazelle. I'm feeling chicken.
Right. I want some turkey today.
Some quail.
Fattened fowl. I could be honest with you, bro. I don't think I think I only had 2 types of bird like in my life. Like I only had chicken and turkey. I don't think I've had any other types of fowl.
No, that's a fact.
Yeah, bro.
I never eat a quail.
Yeah, true. And I don't know how like if this is like probably the best it gets, right? In terms of meat that, is Levitically approved, right? But this guy had options. Mm-hmm. And he had options, and a lot of times, I wasn't like this, but, and that's why I noticed this so much. A lot of times, your entree, the meat that's the most important part of the meal for everyone. And that's why the lentil stew, it just couldn't fly with you for real.
I just was laughing because you realized he ain't had rice.
Wait, they didn't say he didn't have rice. But I don't see you being a king if you ain't no rice with this meal right here, bro.
I know rice was their crop for real. Because you see, because I think rice was more Asia. They had a lot of wheat here. So you see, that's why you mentioned the flour.
The flour and thing.
So they probably has some good bread.
That's what I'm trying to show you. Solomon can't be eating as good as all of this. It still ain't as good as how I eating today, bro. I go into the Indian spot, I can get lamb, all type of different curry with the rice.
I strangely feel like I'd give the edge to Solomon.
Honestly, every time I bring this up, the person I talk to always gives it to them. And I know I'm probably wrong, bro, but it's so funny to me.
I can't argue with 30 oxen.
Yeah, and then
100 sheep. Bro, this clearly this is all in just for Solomon. This clearly for his household and this royal court and other people and who he taking care of. Bro, but mathematically, bro, this could feed 500 people, bro.
And so the thing about...
You remember when I said I wanted to roast a cow leg?
Yeah.
Bro, a cow leg, you take a whole leg of cow, that one leg can feed about 10 people.
Right, that's true. And then the thing about, the reason why Solomon then probably really had a supreme edge over now is that we have so much ways to cut corners in how you prep, right? But they are familiar with the spices because they grow the spices. They're familiar with so much more spices, so the options,
spices with extinct and all now.
That's what I'm saying, bro. With the options to season these food, you know what I mean? I feel like you have a big edge, but to me, when something good, I always have to ask the question. I say, bro, Solomon was eating this good? When I have a good meal, I King David was eating this good every day? That just ain't fair, bro. That ain't fair.
Yeah, that's wild.
Can't be I sleep better thinking that our food today is better. That way I'm bro, it ain't fair, bro. But this is amazing though.
That's an impressive spread, if I do say so myself.
Very true. I wonder what they was eating on special occasions.
I guess my little thing is the same thing. But I say so many special, on the special days, the holidays.
Right.
That's when he's offering 1,000 cattle, bro.
That's true. No, but then to be completely fair though, and serious, on the special days they had specific things to eat.
Yeah.
So it wasn't they didn't have a.
He was almost more restricted on those days.
Yeah. So on Passover, which is a special day, what you eating on Passover.
The cows get a break that day, Dre.
Right. And the geese get a break that day,
the gazelles, the deers, the roebucks.
Yeah, bro, you have unleavened bread and lamb. For real.
All right, so going back to 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 24 now. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Taphshash even to Gaza, namely over all the kings on the side of the river, and he had peace on every side all around him. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, each man under his vine and his fig tree, from Dan as far as Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots. Let me say it again. He had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. Bro, I can't even fathom what 40,000 of any animal in one place looks like.
Bro.
And who cleaning all that poop?
That's what I'm saying. Is it
who's feeding all of them?
Right? Is it one stall per? You know what I mean? Because some stalls bigger than the next. You know what I mean?
When else just gotta walk around and then
right?
Who herding all of these horses?
Boy,
this ain't like the parable of 100 sheep.
Right. That's a little more manageable.
Exactly. And that's almost unmanageable. 40,000 40,000? Man.
That's crazy.
And you thought you was eating like Solomon?
Boy. But I know though, bro. I can take you to some restaurants out there, bro. I know though.
All right. In verse 27, and these governors, each man in his month, to your point, provided food for the king Solomon and for all who came to the king's table. There was no lack in their supply. They also bought barley and straw to the proper place for the houses and the steeds, each man according to his charge. I wouldn't want to be responsible for feeding 40,000 of anything.
No.
Of anything. I only...
That's a lot, bro. That's a lot to manage. Like,
what?
yeah, the king
And
though.
it's just one of your animals. Because who feeding all these cows that you clearly have an infinite supply of?
Oh yeah.
The deer, like, bro, people don't just keep deer.
That's what I saying, bro. Like how y'all was like herding them, like y'all was catching them in the wild every day, or what?
Like how so,
y'all was
when,
breeding them.
like when Samson find all them foxes.
Different foxes.
Like, where these coming from?
For real, bro. But then when you that wise, bro, like
I guess.
you can't be the wisest man in the world and eating unseasoned food though. Like you should be able to say no. You know the salt to
I imagine you going down.
the salt to curry ratio is off right now. You know what
I
I mean?
imagine think he had curry.
I do think, bro. That's the crazy thing, bro. I was talking to one of my friends who from the Middle East, and we was talking about going to Jerusalem, and he said, "Yeah, they have a lot of rice over there, bro." And I was like, "All right, say no more, bro, say no more." So,
I mean, this do look kind of curry-ish. I just googled good Jewish meals.
okay,
It's stewish. I mean, even we know they had stews.
yeah, they lentil stew for sure. They have forefathers.
I think they had some stew beef.
True. I mean, yeah, but them lentils though. Like,
Them lentils ain't make the cut, man.
if y'all don't get the joke, this
Go back
That's
to
a callback.
Go back to Jacob and Esau
yeah,
episode.
right. Because Esau sold his birthright for lentil stew, and Earl doesn't like that trade. He feel like someone should have vetoed that trade.
At least throw some meat in it, man.
Isaac should have come out of nowhere and vetoed that trade, bro.
Like, I mean, sure, at least Isaac wanted venison drink.
yeah, true,
like,
true.
like, throw some meat in it.
But they was doing a lot for that food back then, though.
Mercy.
Yeah.
You gotta get a lot for a bowl of stew back
Real
then.
talk.
Nowadays, you're getting charged $12 for eggs.
We
digress.
They don't want to talk, but that one, though, bro.
We digress. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And in verse 29, and God gave Solomon wisdom and exceedingly great understanding and largeness of heart like the sand of the seashore. Thus Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the men of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman the Calcol, and Dada the sons of Mahol. And his fame was in all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, hint, hint, and his songs were 1,005, hint, hint again. Also, he spoke of trees from the cedar, the tree of Lebanon, even to the hyssop that springs out of the wall. He spoke also of animals, of birds, creeping things, and of fish. And all of the nations, from all the kings of the earth, who had heard of his wisdom, came to hear the wisdom of Solomon.
So to harken back on our conversation last episode, where I was saying if Solomon was a genius, or if he was just like very wise and like very sharp and things like that, you know, as I thought about it more, I don't see how you could not be like wise in all areas. If that's like, I don't see how wisdom, like I feel like today we call wisdom when you make like sound decisions, you know, and you very sharp and witty and clever. But I think the term wisdom here is like just the term wisdom as they describe in Solomon is to say that this man was a genius. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they had the term for genius back then, but they say he's wiser than any man on the earth, you know? And so, as we go throughout the story of Solomon a little more, you can get to see how versatile his wisdom is. So for instance, if someone said you have wisdom in the medical field, they mean you super smart. They don't mean you witty or, you know what I mean? Like they mean you know a lot. Like, you know what I'm saying? So from an educational standpoint, Solomon knew a lot. But one thing what was interesting to me, and it kind of made me laugh just because I was mentioned, they was like, yo, Solomon was wiser than anyone. He was even wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite. And I'm like, who's that? You know what I'm saying? Who is that? But Ethan the Ezrahite, he had a psalm or two. When I was reading the book of Psalms, or maybe it was Proverbs, I came across his name. So obviously he was a very wise man to be compared to Solomon. And it's also obvious that Solomon's wisdom surpassed that of Ethan the Ezrahite. You know what I mean?
I thought you were going to read the Psalms from him.
Oh, no, I didn't put it on. I didn't even Google it, bro.
I was like, okay, you want to read one. Like, you got the build up. But
I'll put it up, though, but you could talk.
I mean, I just was going to, like, probably just read, like, the beginning of Proverbs. Because it always, like, is get me sometimes, right? This is the proverb of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, in doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. For understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and the riddles of the wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. It's always Proverbs 1 verse 7 that gets me. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instructions. And it's like, I mean, like, again, this is from the wisest man who ever lived.
Right.
And he's just saying, you know what, like, you know where the beginning of knowledge actually is when you fear the Lord. And fear here ain't being like terrified and scared. This fear really talks about like reverence and getting to know and having respect for, and you know, like that's what fear means in this sense. And it's interesting, like, because Solomon's arc here, I think he have like one or two more interesting stories, and then we get down to his slide down the mountain.
Yeah.
And boy, what a slide it is.
Fall from grace.
But at the same time, it still shows that whether, like, here's my real train of thought in my head. We have Solomon who says he's the wisest man who ever lived. Not even him saying, God said he's the wisest man that ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of almost hard to rationalize that when the world tells you, oh, Plato hasn't existed yet.
Mm-hmm.
Socrates hasn't come yet. Marcus Aurelius hasn't come yet. Einstein hasn't come yet. So how is Solomon the wisest man that ever lived?
Mm-hmm.
But one, we know the backstory to it, but Solomon telling you where the actual true beginning of knowledge is. And it's the fear of God. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people, shoot, sometimes myself included in this, so I shouldn't say like we as a human race, you know what I'm saying? Like, we try to look to the world to give us answers. We try to look to the world to tell us like what is right, what is wrong, what we should believe, what we should not believe. Like, I mean, we made a joke. I mean, I made the joke earlier asking you, like, in the perfect world, what your world should be. But we look to a lot of humans, we look to like other human beings to find knowledge. You know what I'm saying? But the wisest man who ever lived telling you where knowledge actually comes from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he telling you straight up, like, in the first chapter of his book, I mean, the real first line, like, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and like those who despise wisdom are they're fools. So I just, that was kind of my trend of thought, long and drawn out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the world we live in now, we have people who are renowned, I'd say scholars, scientists, you know, accomplished people that do not fear God, you know, that say God does not exist, you know. You know, the Bible say the fool says in his heart, there is no God. You know, that's a foolish thing. And so it just go to show that you could actually be wise and still be a fool, right? But then once you get to that realization, you realize this person isn't wise for real. It's almost like Corinthians, I think it's chapter 13, I don't know. I always get this wrong. Speak with the tongues of man and of angels, but if I do not have charity, or aka love, I have nothing, right? So you telling me I could speak like an angel, like I am wise, I could speak every language, I could break down all this stuff, but I'm missing love, so that means I have nothing? When you really think about it, yeah, because it's all vanity. It's all vanity, you know, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it, you know? That type of concept. You have people that are so talented. They are so blessed by God, but they deny the power of God. And you realize that you basically wasting your whole talent because you are denying the creator who actually gave you this thing. And so you limiting yourself because you can't even really comprehend how you got this power or what this power, I shouldn't say power, but what this gift is actually for, you know, and you don't even know how to use it for the honor and glory of God. And I feel like having accepted and learned that Solomon is the wisest man ever, wisest meaning I like the Nakhaz, smartest, you a genius. Hearing him say that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, like to me that speaks a lot. That speaks a lot because the world that we live in this year, in this day and age, we are left with a world where the devil has done a lot to miseducate people and to actually discourage us, of us thinking if you want to really unlock your brain, you got to throw away this Christianity stuff or religion in general. I feel like, but a lot of my people who are like my friends who are like really smart, bro, and they really quote unquote wise. I only believe in God, but I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in no specific religion. And they think that's smart. Like to me, I'm just like, bro, you ever learning to me, bro. You know what I mean? Like you chasing after the wind for real.
That's a fact.
You know? But it is what it is because even the wisest person that ever lived tells you like the fear of the Lord, that's wisdom. But it don't even take a wise person to know that. What does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? So, you know, what does it profit you to do anything if the result is destruction? Was you really doing it? And then lastly, the way I think about the world that we live in and the world that we are left with, it's like the parable when Jesus was talking about they had this sower and he sowed these seeds, and then the enemy came and sowed the weeds around it. You know what I mean? And in my mind, I'm like, bro, that's literally what it is. That's literally what it is. God established all this goodness. It's documented in a book, right? But while the church sleep or while the Lord is delaying his coming, the enemy just comes in and spreads a bunch of weeds. They give you this type of philosophy. They give you this mythology. They give you all of these things to consume your mind with. And now you see two plants and you don't even know which one is the weed and which one is the actual wheat. You know, like you don't even know how to decipher. But if we listen to the wisest person, he can tell us how to do it, bro. It's the fear of God. Whichever one leads you away from God is foolishness, you know? But whatever is leading you to God is the beginning of wisdom. It's wisdom. It's wisdom. This week we learned of Solomon and his governors. We also learned that his territories were vast and he was loved by his people. Solomon also had great connections that assisted with building the temple. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next week.